Cheers.
We can't just... No, I'm not cheersing with water.
What the fuck you got against water?
Fish fucking it.
Not this water.
Not from what I saw in there.
Silent movies. They were a thing. And I did not... I think it was actually the first silent movie I've watched from beginning to end. Watching this, and I wanted to get your reaction to this because I really don't know if I'm crazy or if this is an accurate assessment of what I just watched.
I'm so curious what you're about to say.
It didn't feel like a film to me because the language they're having to work with to craft the art they wanted to craft is so insanely different than what you see from like any blockbuster you see today. Comparing this to like Inception, like they're not the same art in my opinion. Like one has literally like they just have to work with an entirely different set of tools to make something that feels wholly different. It's like how we were talking about
in Ran, the different kinds of like acting methods that you saw the actors portraying.
Yeah, like what Charlie Chaplin is doing to bring the tramp to life only works here, and it's a very separate form of creation to bring out emotions from the viewer. And it brings like a full, well-rounded case of emotions. There are actually moments in City Lights where I was like, oh, that emotionally affected me. But to say the editing, the camera work, the acting, the structure, the pacing is in the same ballpark of a modern movie.
I thought so. This was a really, really interesting film for me to watch, and
only you, though.
I mean, yeah, no, I don't think anyone else has ever captured any entertainment from this movie whatsoever. No, there's really, for a movie with no talking in it, there's a lot to say about it.
Yeah, that was clever.
Yeah,
that was
right? You see what I did there? Yeah, that's pretty good, right?
I don't know. I don't have the frame of reference to know if like this is the cornerstone Charlie Chaplin film, or if this is what AFI has just picked as a really good example of his work. I wasn't alive in the time. I don't know what the zeitgeist, like, what people are talking about for Charlie Chaplin. I just know he was one of the most famous people in existence at the time.
City Lights, interestingly, moved up like 65 spots from the 1997 list. So it's number 11 on this list, which means that it was, like 76 on the previous one. And I can't say really what it was in that span of 10 years that made it jump up so significantly. But a number of directors, David Fincher among them, Kubrick has cited City Lights as one of his most influential films, which I think is interesting because when you think about Kubrick's work, it's not super comedy heavy.
Food or...
But yeah, I think this is a really significant film just because Chaplin dedicated so much of his time to crafting it, and it was definitely sort of a counterpiece to talkies, to like the speaking film era,
which was still brand new at the time.
It was about 4 years old, so the first talkies were 1927.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay,
like this is such an interesting thing about Chaplin because he's such an intelligent, he's such a, he's like a genius, right? He's like really opposed to having audio in films. He's for him, the film is like a much more visual medium.
Which is funny because he did end up doing a talkie. It was notably, I think, like one of his last big career thing because after that he got blacklisted because it was a very political movie for its time.
Is that The Great Dictator?
Yes.
Yeah.
A very, very political movie that I think after this could just be what like pop culture has decided is the story. I haven't researched it enough to speak confidently, but I'm pretty sure it was after that movie Hollywood kind of just went and moved on from the Chaplin era. But getting into City Lights itself, what I found to be very general overview of the story, it follows the Chaplin character that is in most of his movies, the tramp. Yeah. Just getting into shenanigans. He's the world's most lovable con man and thief. Like, I don't know how else to describe him. He's also the cornerstone for the development of things like the Marx Brothers, Three Stooges. Definitely. So much comedy comes from this character. Not even Charlie Chaplin. This character.
Right.
And he starts getting involved and having a love interest in a blind woman. And so he's running his con. He's doing his, I'm way more rich and handsome than I really am kind of stuff, which is kind of funny because Charlie Chaplin's a handsome guy. Like, I actually think he's
super handsome. And you can even tell under the makeup, like when you look at him, you're like, oh wow, that is a movie star's face.
And there's even like the boxing scene where he's like supposed to be shirtless, and it's his posture that's making him look small. But if you see photos of Charlie Chaplin like standing full up, he's an in shape guy, as he had to be to do these stunts.
Yeah.
But he starts going through stuff to try and help out this blind woman, especially when he finds out she's unable to pay for her rent, or her grandmother's lying about the rent situation. And he ends up getting involved in what is this film's biggest set piece, I'd say, is the amazing choreography and the boxing ring and everything.
Sure. Just that so much of the film had to have been choreographed and had to have been acted and executed in such a perfect way for audience members to feel the sadness and like see the humor and see the happiness and see the humanity. And I mean that literally. They have to see all of these things, and the question of how do I convey empathy and sadness and laughter and drunkenness without having any sort of sound in the background, without being able to just say I'm sad, which would be like the laziest way of telling the audience that you're sad, but without having like some kind of monologue and without using cue cards is a really difficult task, and I think that he does it so well. And there's another scene that I want to talk about, but I'll let you if you had another thing that you wanted to say.
I want to jump straight to the boxing scene, so if it's before that.
Yeah, go to the boxing scene.
Okay, because this is, I went into there's a lot of build up to this, and I actually started feeling it. Like, this film decides to take some time to really actually put some weight behind this boxing match, where I was expecting to be like, oh, it's gonna be a funny boxing match, and then we see him in the locker room around these people, and they are big, in shape guys displaying boxing stuff. He tries to have a little con going, or one of the guys is like not gonna hurt him, so it won't be that big a deal. That guy has to run from the police, and so he's then put up against a big bad dude who is going to go for the take it all home purse. And it's funny, it keeps its comedic tone, but then, like, you also start feeling like, oh, this guy's a threat. And so when you get in the boxing ring and the tramp pulls out his shenanigans, the humor undercutting the established threat makes it so much more poignant.
Yeah.
And so much funnier.
No, I just wanted to say, so in addition to sort of being a master of showing things through physicality, right? I think Chaplin is, to this day, and remains very much so, a master of comedy. Right? Yeah. Because I think especially what I'm expecting from even the Three Stooges, or like when you see comedy around that era, a lot of what I expect are pratfalls, is like slapstick comedy, which is very much the Three Stooges, or one-liners, which is very much the Marx Brothers, who are very close to my heart. Like, that's kind of the comedy that I expect from this sort of this general realm of comedy. And what Chaplin does instead is, I think he's such a master of comedy deriving from the unexpected. And so, like, you have a scene where he's ogling the beautiful female statue in the store window, which I think is so perfect, because I'm sorry, but I think that every person out there has at some point like wandered past a store window and seen something very attractive and scandalous that they want to look at, but they can't be too obvious about it. And so to watch Chaplin like walk up to the store window and look at the horse and very like subtly look at the sexy nude woman. Subtly, right. I think he puts it really well, and I don't know if this is a myth or not, but apparently someone once asked Chaplin, would it be funnier if the woman walking into the scene slipped on a banana peel, or would it be funnier if she fell into a manhole? And Chaplin goes, no, what would be funnier is if you show the audience the banana peel and show the audience that the woman sees the banana peel and going out of her way to step over the banana peel and then falls into the manhole. Like, that's what comedy comes from, is the unexpected, right? Yeah. There's that anticipation, and I think throughout the movie he does that exceptionally well. And that pure form of comedy, like, I laughed consistently throughout the film. Yeah. And I wasn't expecting to.
No, it's literally a century old, and I'm still laughing at it. Because it accomplished... No, not literally. It's... Okay, someone's going to point out in the comment section. No, it's not literally a century old.
What is it, 92 years? I can do quick math. Yeah.
Are you going to talk about his mustache?
No, oh Jesus, no. I really didn't look into the styles of the time, so I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I think that was just a popular. At what point did you stop seeing it? Because I actually I had one scene where I was like, "That's the mustache," and then I moved past it, and I was like, "It's before Hitler, so who cares?"
It was. I think I only associate for the briefest moment, but for the most part, it's just. I don't know, maybe Charlie Chaplin is such an iconic cultural figure in his own right that when I see Chaplin, I only think of Chaplin. Yeah. I don't...
It's such a distinct look.
It is. It's a very distinct look. Oh, but he is a really harsh director. And so I think... Yeah, he is. So speaking of this kind of ties in with some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier. where he's trying to convey as much as humanly possible with just what's on set and what you can do physically. The scene where he meets the flower girl for the first time, he shot upwards of 340 times.
Oh, Kubrick, eat your heart out.
Yeah, right? No.
Film was expensive back then.
No, film was he spent I'm going to get this figure wrong, but I feel fairly confident on this. $1.25 million in 1931 money.
Just lie and put up an insane figure.
Just the zeros, if they could keep running across the bottom of the screen, great. So that scene is like the blind girl has to be able to tell that Charlie Chaplin / the Tramp is rich just from the way that he approaches her, like from the sounds that she hears and from, just his presence around her. And so being able to get the actress's name, Virginia something, I can't remember her full name, because apparently the gimmick is that he's coming out of a car, and so the presence of a car itself implies that someone would be rich and that he's getting away from the crowd or something. And so all of that lead up to Chaplin interacting with the flower girl for the first time, because there's no cue cards, has to show that the flower girl understands that he's rich. And it worked. I mean, it worked for me.
Yeah,
I 100% understood it.
There is I want to say my biggest fear in showing this movie to a lot of people today, I know this might sound condescending to younger generations. A lot of people, I don't think, will fully understand what you're watching in frame is what's happening in front of the camera. Because even before CGI, we've developed all kinds of tricks to show in editing and convey things that aren't actually happening in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Whereas this is early enough in filmmaking, everything he's doing that looks like it might kill him, Charlie Chaplin's doing that.
Right.
And it's, I also, I saw another silent movie not starring Charlie Chaplin called The General, where I constantly was like, this is boring, until I realized, no, I'm actually watching Buster Keaton crawl on a real moving train.
Yes.
Oh my God, this is the most tense thing I've ever watched, because it's not acting. It's not, in a way, because this is actually a dude trying to live so that you'll get the shot you need.
So but Buster Keaton's whole premise is this is entertaining because I might have actually died doing it. And I need you to there's the only way that you know that I survived is because there's an end to this film. Again, at the risk of sounding incredibly condescending, I lost my patience with this a couple of times. It's hard for me to keep my focus on a movie where there is no dialogue and where the entire entertainment value has to come from the physicality, has to come from set pieces, and music. And I don't know, I really appreciated it because I grew up watching the Marx Brothers, and that, I don't know, I guess I could see parallels, and I love comedy. That's very close to my heart. But I don't know.
I'm surprised. I would have thought you would have just been glued.
I don't know. I'm not sure what it was, but I do kind of wonder how it would hold up with, say a 15-year-old, and maybe I hate to sort of be venturing into that age where I'm oh, the youth won't understand, the youth don't get it, I get it. But it's I don't know. I'm curious. You can roast me in the comments or whatever, but, can you sit down and watch a silent movie? How does it hold up for you all?
I would love for some younger people in our audience, and we're big enough now that there's definitely some younger people. 15K subscribers, nearly there for this second channel.
Tell me, I want to know.
I mean, there are, and this is just not me saying there's anything wrong with this, but there are jokes that take longer to set up and pay off than TikTok allows you to have a length of a video. So it's about attention span, and I have a terrible attention span. I think part of the reason I was able to watch this and be so glued to it, I wasn't sober. And so I think I was just hyper fixated because I was this is the greatest thing. And so, genuinely I wasn't. And I think I really hyper fixated because of that. I should probably go back and try and do it completely sober to see if I would actually be able to pay as much attention. I used performance enhancing drugs for this.
The only performance enhancing drug I use is water.
All right, but that takes us to our end questions here. Do you think this should be remade today?
No.
Yeah, I think of any movie we watched, it would have the least amount of value.
Yeah.
We don't train actors to be like the Tramp is.
Yeah.
So no one could do that. I think Robert Downey Jr. had to practice for so long to become Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
It's just, no, I don't, there's literally zero value in remaking this movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I also just, like I really enjoyed The Artist, and I believe it won an Oscar when it came out, which is a very cool accomplishment to achieve in the 2000s, the 2010 era. But I went back and rewatched The Artist recently, and I hate to say this, but it did kind of come across as a novelty. Like, very cool, still well done, like, beautiful piece of art. But the more that I watched it, the more I was like, okay, this is cool just because it was a challenge, but it's not like that much of a rewarding film. And I would be concerned that if anyone were to redo Charlie Chaplin's films, you get the same kind of novelty factor where, like, yeah, this is great, thanks for remaking it, but you're never going to do it better than Chaplin did it.
And at this point in his career, Charlie Chaplin had basically formed this genre that he was so diehard to around exactly what he did that you wouldn't fit the glove as well for anyone else. And going even further than that, you just remind me of a controversial opinion I'm going to say here for the comment boost. Speaking of gimmicks, I watched 1917. Good movie. The whole one take thing that's clearly not really one takes because they keep having these cuts.
Right, sure.
Total novelty gimmick. Like, I was like, it would have felt more... I would have been less taken out of the movie if they did traditional cuts. Because, like, the long takes, I was like, oh, these are great long takes. And then, like, the 40th long take, I was like, this is exhausting.
Okay, but all right, so I'm glad that you used literally that word, and I understand that we're segueing off of Charlie Chaplin at this point, and we're nearing the end of the video. However, I thought specifically for that reason that I felt exhausted, and maybe I'll have a different opinion when I rewatch it, but I thought because I felt exhausted, I felt more like I was in the shoes of the protagonist that we were following. Like, I truly felt like, oh my God, this would be fucking exhausting if I were this soldier and I was in this position and I had to, whatever it was, relay a message or something, get back from point A to point B. By the end of the movie, I was like, great film. I am exhausted. He must have been exhausted. And I think that's a really rare thing to get in a movie where you, feel what the character felt on a physical level. So yeah, novelty, probably, but I thought it was an incredibly effective one.
And I will admit, in the same vein of Charlie Chaplin, it was an incredible execution of that, but I also noticed, maybe it's because I spend so much of my life editing, I noticed every cut. Like, there were so many of them that were very obvious. I didn't think that if the cuts were hidden better, I think I would have been on more of the wavelength, but I kept thinking, like, it's not one take. Like, I kept being like, this is bullshit.
Not.
Oh, the screen went all black. I wonder where the cut is. Oh, he jumped in the water. Oh, that big fat tree that just went by. Totally not a cut. So I was just, I don't know. I'm an asshole. Anyway, is this in your top 100 films of all time?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that it moved up from its place in the 1997 list. Yeah, I think I kind of said my piece at the very beginning, which is I saw the blueprint for a lot of comedies going forward in this movie, and I'm really glad. I have not seen it before. I was really glad to have watched it. Oh, you got a hot take.
I might make you mad.
Okay.
I think in terms of everything we've said, yeah, probably in the top 100 movies. I just can't think of it like a movie. Like, it's not a movie to me. Like, it's watching it felt like such a different experience. It felt... normally when I watch a movie, I try as hard as I can to be drawn into it, to feel like I'm in the world, to feel like I'm with the characters. And it didn't feel like the movie was trying to get me to do that. It felt like I was watching the spectacle of Chaplin and the artistry here, almost more like a circus performance with a narrative. And so I want to say it's in my top 100, but it's going to be low for me just because I have to judge and weight it almost entirely separately than the normal tools I use to, like, figure out how I feel about a movie. And again, maybe I'm the biggest pretentious piece of shit, but, like, to me, I can't feel like I can confidently rate this movie because I feel like I need to watch it 5 more times to mature enough, or watch 5 more silent films to mature enough to have something to even compare it to.
Yeah.
So I really struggle with it. So I'm going to say maybe it's in my top 100, but, like, I have the least amount of basis to say that off of.
No, that's totally fair. I think that's a totally fair critique. It is significantly older, of a different era entirely, and it definitely feels like there is a different plot structure overall to the film.
Its language of communicating the story to you is a whole different language than what you're used to.
Especially when you and I and everyone out there watching grew up watching talkies, right? Movies with sound and movies that, like,
I enjoy the talkies. We're too young. As much as we said other people might be too young, we in our late 20s are definitely too young.
No. Never give any age whatsoever. We are of indeterminate age, somewhere between 15 and 40.
A lot of people still think I'm like 18. It's really upsetting. I get comments.
Is that why you have the mustache? Did it jump from my face to yours?
Yes. Bye, everybody.